Welcome to our podcast, Transcending the Negative Mind. In this podcast, we are talking about Aries, child to the sovereign self. And I am delighted that I'm joined by Zoe Hind again, soul astrologer, wellbeing coach and personal trainer. And as you all know, I am a psychotherapist, a Kundalini yoga teacher and a transformational guide. So welcome, Zoe. I'm really excited about this podcast tonight, as always.
Thank you for having me, and happy spring equinox. It's a new start, new cycle. So I wanted to say a few bits about the spring equinox because it is a really sacred time. It's the start of the zodiac year. While the sun is in the sign of Aries, Aries is actually an anagram for arise. And this is the dawn of the year. This is when the sap rises in the trees and the tides all swell and we feel that rising of energy inside of us. And as we're heading into a very Aquarian looking year, then this is about taking that rising power and actually doing something with it, activating it and coming from our inner heart spark. So really very sacred time that we're coming into right now.
Wonderful, really wonderful. Yes, I was thinking about Aries being the first sign in the zodiac calendar, and it started me thinking about where and when do we put ourselves first. And I was speaking to an elderly neighbour last week, and he was talking about his wife who does so much for others, and at meal times always makes sure that he has the best bits of food. But on the flip side of it, she rarely thinks about herself, and he just was commenting on it. We were just talking about how important it is to really look after ourselves and in our own relationships and listen to ourselves. And he also said how like her mother she is. And our conditioning is such that we often put others before ourselves. And it's vital we listen to ourselves and put ourselves first. It's not about being selfish or feeling it's unfair. It's not from an egotistical place. This is about gentle and supportive self-care. Our conditioning comes from our parents and theirs from their parents, and it's great to be curious about your patterns of behaviour and curious about where they have grown from.
Absolutely, and I think we've just gone through the last full moon was Virgo, which is about service. And especially with women, we've been told that we're not valid unless we're serving someone else first. And we're coming into a time now where it's you have to be good in yourself before you can even begin to help someone else and to break that cycle of external servitude. And I like the term higher selfish. If people can't be selfish in their lower self, which sometimes can be ego-led and negatively impact someone else, then the idea of being in higher service and higher selfish then rises us up above any negative feelings that we might have towards permission to be selfish and permission to put ourselves first.
Yes, absolutely. Aries in the spring equinox, as you mentioned also, is about beginning new things, and it's about harnessing all of our energy to put life force into our plans and our creations for the next 3 months. Becoming aware of our energy and starting to notice where our energy supports us and where it's leaking out. What environments are we in when we feel energised, and what environments are we in when we feel drained?
Yeah, that's perfectly put. I've just said in my weekly video that when we came out of last year's Capricorn energy, we were told that we had to give our time, our energy and time for money. That was the equation. And now I feel that we're flipping that and we're saying I value my energy and time, and where I put it in an energised and rejuvenating environment will bring back to me the resources that I need. And this is part of sovereign living, where we're not in the economic slavery rat race anymore, but we actually say, you know what's the best life I can have every day? What kind of people do I want to be around? What impact do I have on them naturally? And where can I guide that towards a life of purpose and joy? So if you just think about it in terms of that equation, we used to sell our time for money, and our energy and our health was eroded in that process. But now, as we value our vital life force energy and our health and our talent and our passion, which is Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, then we can create a scenario where that's welcome, that's rewarded, and that's uplifting.
Yes. I love that transition from that place of Capricorn coming up to where we are now. So Aries is also the ram, and it's a great time to also be thinking about what are we forcing or headbutting in our lives. Aries is also the element of fire. Where can you bring that element in and bring passion and fire to your plans and actions?
Yeah, and if we look at the symbol of Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, so like I say, Aries is a rise, and if you look at the ram's horns, that's actually the solar rays coming up over the horizon on the spring equinox. And if we look at the symbol for Libra, because we'll be coming into a Libra full moon and we'll be talking about relationships in a minute, it's actually a picture of the sunset on the autumn equinox. So we've got a rise and set. And these symbols are very well designed and meaningful. But if we look at the symbol for Mars, the circle is the sun, the sol, the soul. So it's where we take our soul force energy and direct it upwards. And that's part of the equation that we're looking at now. Where do we actually rise up, not live in the old system where we put ourselves second and we're weak by the weekend, having worked, given our energy to things that we don't even care about, where we put our hobbies and interests at the bottom of our CV. We're now looking at where do we take our heart spark, what we really care about, take that soul force energy and direct it upwards, so that we'll be experiencing a transition from separation consciousness to unity consciousness, as we don't have to reach outside of ourselves to gain back. We'll actually be transmitting who we are and our value, our inner gold, reflected back to us from the outside.
Beautiful. I love that. These last few weeks I've been thinking about new growth and the enchantment of nature, watching nature bursting with new growth, colour and hope. And I've been thinking about the space between our everyday life and where we can go to physically and mentally when we become quiet, and especially in meditation. And that feels like what you've just been talking about, so it feels like that leads into this, thinking about how do we create that quiet and that space so that our sovereignty can shine.
Yep, that's perfect. And I've got a yoga pose for each sign. And my yoga pose for Aries, whenever you're too hot-headed, because many people don't realise that the zodiac runs through the body. So Aries is the ram's horns, that's the head. And some of the things that Aries can suffer from are migraines and hot-headedness, rashness. So my yoga pose for Aries is child pose, because when you lower your head to the floor and you're in that almost fetal position, then you can surrender all of your thoughts and just really sink into the floor and find that nurture and that space to get out of the head.
We all started life as an inner spark, and a great way to activate our inner fire is with one of my favourite breath works, Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire is cleansing and energising. It stimulates the blood and it clears toxins from the body. So you could do Breath of Fire, and then you could take yourself into child pose and just really feel that stillness in the body afterwards. So Breath of Fire, it's like panting through your nose, and you want to, if you find that difficult to do at first, you can open your mouth and just pant on the exhale with your tongue sticking out. So, and as you breathe out, you're pulling your navel towards your spine, and then close your mouth and do the panting through your nose. Okay? And just, as I say, following the breath work, really just feel the stillness inside the body, because it's a really lovely breath to do. And also, if you're feeling tired, it's a good breath to do because it energises you.
Yeah, and when it comes to energising, we've got the light cells in the body. So when you've done your Breath of Fire and you're in child's pose, you could just focus to get out of the mind. It's often great to focus on the feelings of the body. So you might want to just explore all of those light cells now rejuvenated and buzzing, and just fall into that feeling, and you'll find in that way your mind will stop pretty quickly, focusing on the light cells of the body. It's a great exercise that you can do with or without the breath and the pose. You can actually do it if you're on a crowded bus or something. You can just get out of the mind and sink into the cellular, rejuvenate those light cells and really run them around your body, unblocking anything that's tight or tense, like a form of inner Reiki.
Magical. Aries is opposite Libra, and I know, Zoe, you're going to be talking a bit about this as well. Zoe has also, from Zoe, I know that the crystal that you favour for Libra is rose quartz, and rose quartz enhances relationships. What relationships in your life are mirroring how you are in relationship with yourself? If you feel annoyed or frustrated with someone, stand back and observe where you feel it in your body. What is it reflecting with your own relationship with yourself? When we're irritated with another, we often distance ourselves, and that's what we can do with ourselves too, so that we don't have to feel the pain or the discomfort.
Yeah, and if we look at the full moon that's coming up in Libra at the weekend, then Libra is ruled by Venus, and they call it the mirror of Venus. So when we look at relationships and we do get frustrated, and Aries can be that anger rising up, then it's as if somebody's holding a mirror up to us. So instead of the projection onto them, then this full moon can often bring up the fact that it's a projection, and instead of that, go deep within and find what is it in me that's irritated or aggravated, or as they like to say in modern vernacular, triggered. Really important. If you've got a button that's being pressed, it's your button. So this is going to be a really great opportunity to balance relationships on the full moon on the 28th at 8 degrees Libra. And this is a balancing point from head to the heart. So Aries is ruled by Mars, which is masculine I. Libra is ruled by Venus, which is we. So you've got the I and the we, you've got the Mars and the Venus, you've got the masculine and the feminine. From head to heart is really a journey that we're taking en masse this year. To learn how to stop thinking, to learn how to be present in the heart, and to really connect with that heart spark, because the ultimate light cells in our body are actually our heartbeat. And that's where our passion and joy is housed. And if we can come from that in every single action and interaction, then this is how we rise up from the I am, which is the initial phase of Aries, to being the spiritual warrior, to taking that soul force energy and rising it up. So we're standing on a really interesting threshold on the full moon this weekend in Libra, to be able to see what's being reflected back to us, to be able to bring up whatever that's irritating inside of us for cleansing, but also to learn how to go from masculine, feminine, from the head to the heart, and from doing to being, which is part of a massive workshop of 2021.
Sometimes people say to me, I just don't know how to connect with all these parts of myself, and one way that can help is by just becoming aware of your breath, and that can start the journey, and then take you into more awareness of how you are in relationship with yourself, and really starting to notice if you're in your masculine energy, you're in your doing energy, and if you're in your feminine energy, that's the more creative side. And yeah, it's just slowing down and just becoming aware of how you are with yourself.
Which self, really, because people don't really know who they are. They've taken the sum of their experiences personally and called it a personality, and then belonged to the story. That happened to me then and I was upset, and then because you were upset you caused that to happen again in another way because you didn't learn the lesson of taking it inwards. So therefore things are going to keep happening, and eventually if things happen often enough, then you start to believe that that's your story. But one of the techniques that I work with my clients is called me, myself and I. So the me is the little separate ego. Poor me, that thing happened to me, that person did that thing to me, I can't help it. That's the wounded inner child and victim. So we're talking about Aries, the inner child. And this is a great time to go in and have a look at that story, that victim, that separation consciousness. When we get to the myself is the person that can observe the thoughts. So the first thing that you can do to get out of your story is to have a practice every day of stopping to observe, what am I thinking? What feelings is that creating? So the myself is the observer, the awareness of the me. And then once we've got that practice enough, then we can say, okay, I keep telling myself this, I keep thinking that, I keep reinforcing that story. And we can start to unpick it from that place of awareness. So we are the observer of our thoughts. They're coming through us. But then when we rise to the I, That's the perfect self. That's the heartbeat that's connected to source. That's the eternal soul that doesn't have this single lifetime sob story. And this is where we're coming from a place of spiritual perfection, and when we can observe our lives on a multi-lifetime perspective from the I, the real I am, and the myself is the one that's doing the observing, then that's where we can really start to solve some of the inner child issues and really get out of our story.
Lovely, yeah, really lovely. And yes, this is all about awareness and bringing ourselves into awareness so that we can rise into this sovereign place. Thank you so much, Zoe, for sharing all that you have shared. Really wonderful. And where can people find you when they are looking for you?
My email is zoehines7@gmail.com, and because we've got a bit more time at the moment, I'm doing everything on a custom basis. So if you want a chart reading, if you want to learn your chart, if you want coaching sessions, if you want to learn tarot or numerology or any of those things, then I can basically arrange a phone call with you so that we can design something custom for you. And then my Facebook is @AstroZo, my YouTube channel @ZoeHines7, where I post daily insights, and my main channel is zoeastro YouTube, where I make a weekly video so that we've got a weather forecast of what's coming up and how we can navigate together and harmoniously.
Wonderful, really, really wonderful. Yeah, and your weekly, your daily postings are lovely. They really are. They're great, and it's great to listen to it on a Sunday night for the week ahead, because it just kind of sets you up for the week, I find, or sets me up for the week. So thank you also to everybody for listening. You can find me at juliamelville.com, and I'm Instagram Julia_Melville, and on Facebook, and I'm Julia Melville Initiating Change on Facebook. So yes, thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next month.